from Gary Ench, who is going to be bringing the Dondozo Tatsugiri mode, the Indeedee Sneasler, and the Pelipper Archaludon. So a little bit of a new 2-2-2 team, I guess, that personally I've been seeing a little bit on ladder.
Yeah, a little bit of Gary Enge accomplishments. Has been active apparently since 2018, where he won a special event back in 2018, the Kuala Lumpur Special Champion. Also, the 2021 season, he also participated in the World Cup of VGC, representing his country, and Malaysia made it to top 16. He also made it to the finals of Malaysian Nationals in 2022, and then he actually made it to the finals again, and this time he won that event in 2024, Malaysian National Champion. So really, really strong list of accomplishments for Gary. And as you said, he's using Dondozo Tatsugiri, this new 2-2-2 version with a Dondozo that has a Terra Steel and Heavy Slam option. It decided to not go for Order Up, which is an interesting pick. I think Heavy Slam is definitely a strong move on Dondozo. With the Terra Steel Heavy Slam, you can sometimes get some really, really nice damage output into things that would usually resist Wave Crash or Earthquake, let's say, or not necessarily resist Earthquake, but sometimes take neutral damage. So for example, Amoonguss is one that comes to mind, that if you chip the Amoonguss and it's not full health, maybe around 70-60%, then a Terra Steel Heavy Slam sometimes can pick it up, sometimes even doing a little bit more than 70%. So depending on how of course, the Dondozo was trained. But there's a Safety Goggles Tatsugiri, no Choice Scarf. Choice Scarf obviously being one of the main items for Tatsugiri historically, but a lot of Tatsugiri sometimes opt for a Focus Sash or Safety Goggles in this case, with Taunt, very interesting. And then the combination of Indeedee Sneasler that honestly you can put on any team, but has seen a lot of usage, as you mentioned, on Dondozo teams. And finally, a Rain Core with our Chalodon being just so powerful, and a Pelipper. But this Pelipper is Cover Cloak. And if I'm not mistaken, that's a Terra Fairy option. It's not Terra Ghost, so interesting the decision on the Terra Fairy. But yeah, really strong looking team for Gary.
Yeah, I'm looking at this team, and obviously the Terra Steel on Dondozo, great for preventing your stats being removed by something like a Clear Smog. But on the other hand, Pokemon like Dragonite with Haze have become more and more popular. So, maybe that's also why the Pelipper opted for the Terra Fairy, to be immune to that Scale Shot, because some Dragonite, they don't even play Extreme Speed. They only have Scale Shot and then, like, Tailwind, Haze, sometimes Protect, sometimes they have Extreme Speed. So, I guess that's something I could see. I could be wrong, but that would be my first guess.
Yeah, and Terra Steel, as you said, also, you cannot be hit with Clear Smog if you predict that. But on the other hand, you can be put to sleep by an Amoonguss since you're not Terra Grass. But as you said, like, Haze has been a really, really common move on Dragonites. So the addition of this Archaludon and Pelipper maybe has something to do with that. Because as a Dondozo player, of course, you have to be aware that almost every Dragonite nowadays is running Haze. So you have to find another approach for that matchup. Because the moment you bring your Dondozo, of course, you have to be very careful. You cannot switch out because the Dragonite can click Haze. And maybe, the Terra Steel, Dragonite being a Pokemon that resists Wave Crash and is immune to Earthquake, maybe with the Heavy Slam and the Terra Steel +2, you can do a very good amount of damage to Dragonite. Although most Dragonites have the multi-scale ability specifically for situations like this. And I think we can move on into our next team sheet. The next player info is going to be Zee Costagliola's team. And as we said earlier, it's going to be a Sun team with Torkoal and Charizard, a team that probably you guys are very familiar at this point because this team just won the Latin American International Championship with Marco Silva doing a great tournament run back in, last weekend at Brazil. And I believe he also used that team at the Gdansk Regional a couple of weeks ago with some small changes, but we're going to get into that in a moment. The Jumpluff is the version that we have seen no damaging move, right? It's just like a full support Jumpluff, Sleep Powder, Sunny Day, Tailwind, Rage Powder with no damaging move, Cover Cloak, Terra Water. Torkoal is a Helping Hand eruption, Overheat, Protect, Eject Back. I believe Marco Silva had Clear Smog in his first, let's say, version of the Steam back
In
in
the
Gdansk,
Gdansk, yeah.
and he updated that for Helping Hand and the Terrifier.
He also had Dragon Pulse on Charizard, if I'm not mistaken, and now switched it to Air Slash. But I really think this is just a great team, also to just bring to World Cup. You know, you might not feel comfortable enough with it to bring it to a bigger tournament, but for like a one-time best of 3, I think it's really difficult to prep against. So I think we probably will see it a few more times. I'm curious to see if we'll eventually maybe see a mirror match of it as well. That could be interesting. And players maybe, you know, made their own little adjustments in terms of how the Pokemon are trained. But yeah, it's the Jumpluff with no attacking move. Like, personally, for me, I would be like terrified to play a Pokemon like that. But we've seen Marco Fierro on stream pilot it so well and just bring all of these Pokemon in a great position to where they just have the maximum value. And that is what helped him, you know, get these great results at both, you know, Gdansk and, of course, winning LAIC. And I just love to see other people pilot it as well to, you know, it just goes to show that even with a great team like this, everyone, you know, might play it a little bit differently. And just because you take a great team doesn't necessarily mean it's automatically going to work. Especially since I think something like a Jumpluff with no attacking moves can be a little bit difficult to pilot sometimes, and to, you know, get the team in the correct position where you get as much value out of it as possible.
Yeah, I think Jumpluff honestly is a Pokemon that has a lot of utility, but as you said, like, some players might not be very comfortable knowing that it cannot do any damage, and if you play wrong, you're obviously not in a good spot. But because of all these powerhouses that are usually next to Jumpluff, some players can see the value of having it, right? Like, you have a Charizard that is choice specs. It doesn't even need a potential Terra Fire boost. No, he's just Terra Ghost for more, let's say, specific defensive play against Fake Out, for example. But the choice specs with the solar power in the sun is just so powerful. It does so much damage with something like Heat Wave, Overheat, and even Weather Ball. So, like, yeah, choice specs Charizard being one of the main attackers, you know, for a faster approach. But maybe one part of the team has some, let's say, inconsistency in the sense that you can miss Sleep Powder, you can miss Heat Wave, you can miss Overheat, but then the other part of the team is really consistent. You have an Ursaluna that cannot miss any move and hits really hard, and you have a Porygon that is super consistent, very bulky, has Recover, has, you know, the potential download boost on special attack. You have Incineroar, which in the sun does a lot of damage with Flare Blitz. You have Torkoal, of course, which is another fire type. This team actually has 3 fire types, but usually the 3 fire types, they do different things, so they're not like overlapping roles or something like that. So I think the team is really scary to face, because sometimes you need to make a call, like, okay, what mode am I going to try to cover more? Because you cannot cover everything. Like, you can try to cover the Jumpluff, let's say, Torkoal part, or the Jumpluff Charizard, but then the opponent can just lead with Incineroar and P2 and try to go for Trick Room, so it's kind of difficult to play against. At the same time, it's not that easy to pilot, but you know, as you said, maybe for like a one-time best of 3 in this kind of tournaments, it's fine for a lot of people, and I'm really excited to see if it's gonna win on stream this time or not. I believe we have game 1 ready, so we're gonna jump into that in a very short moment. And yeah, excited to cast this. Let's see if Torkoal Jumpluff can take the win for the United States, or if Dondoso is gonna win for Malaysia.
Oh, and we're gonna start off with a Porygon 2 and Incineroar lead up against the one pair that personally I've seen the most right now on ladder. It is Sneasler and Indeedee Male here on the field. Sneasler immediately activating that Psychic Seed and getting that Unburden and special defense boost. Incineroar gonna fire back with an Intimidate. So yeah, lowering the stats of the Sneasler a little bit. So now a few things we need to keep in mind is that on the one hand, Sneasler, you know, is threatening this Incineroar. It can go for Terra Ghost, but probably doesn't want to do that, since the Indeedee right now cannot touch this Incineroar. So I think Porygon 2 and Incineroar is actually a really nice start for Zee here, to maybe get a Trick Room going and then switch into Ursaluna.
Yeah, obviously Incineroar P2 is 13 in the Trick Room, but there is a mind game here because Indeedee has Imprisoned Trick Room, but it's so obvious
yeah,
you have it. So like the Indeedee might not even try to click it and just go for the full offense into the P2, which I believe is what we are seeing. Close combat from Indeedee, from Sneasler, doing a lot of damage to Porygon, but it's not enough to pick up the KO because that Intimidate from Incineroar paying off. The Expanding Force is also not enough, as we do see a knockoff. Obviously, this Indeedee is Focus Sash. So I'm wondering if, yeah, there's a Terra Blast. See, saying like, I know you have Imprison. I'm not even gonna bother wasting a turn clicking Trick Room because it's obvious that you're leading with this to stop my Trick Room. So C just decided to go for the more offensive approach, trying to just eliminate that Indeedee from play, and he actually allowed the the Archaludon to now come for free, because Indeedee, although it had the pressure of Imprison in the Trick Room, it didn't even, like, both players didn't even do that, because they said like, okay, I know you know that I have Imprison Trick Room, so let me just go for the offense, and now we have Archaludon next to Sneasler.
Yeah, and I completely forgot about the Imprisoned Trick Room, so yeah, great point there. But now the Porygon 2 has lost so much health to the point where it can just be finished off by either Sneasler or Archaludon. So Z will probably not get the Trick Room this game, but perhaps maybe he expected that. We don't know yet if he has the Charizard or Ursaluna or both in the back. Porygon 2 is going to faint, so that's one Pokemon down on each side already after just the second turn. A Dragon Pulse here into this Incineroar, gonna do, yeah, a little bit more than 30%, and a Parting Shot here into the Sneasler is going to lower its attack even more. So damage output from the Sneasler has been greatly reduced here, but you know, there's always Direct Claw. Direct Claw has other usages aside from damage, as I think we all know and have experienced before. And it is the Ursaluna coming in here now. Does not have the Trick Room. It's gonna get the Flame Orb boost though, and the Guts boost. So, you know, it is looking really nice against both of these Pokemon. Can hit both of them super effective. And Z's gonna bring in the Jump Love now. Interesting. Jump Love without the Sun. Could get a Tailwind going.
Yeah, probably this Ursaluna is like a little bit speedy to be able to work in Tailwind, but also like slow enough to work in Trick Room. But like no Trick Room was set up, so this Ursaluna, even with Tailwind, is never going to outspeed as Sneasler that had the Burden activated. But at this point, you know that obviously Jumpluff does not have the Sun, because we already saw that P2 was the one that was led with an Incineroar, so there's no Torkoal. So obviously that means that Jumpluff cannot outspeed the Sneasler, most likely, depending on how they were trained. The Sneasler should usually be faster, but the Sneasler is -2 because of the Intimidate in the Parting Shot, so it's probably not going to be able to pick up the KO on this Jumpluff. And Jumpluff has Cover Cloak, so you cannot even hope for like Direct Claw shenanigans, because Cover Cloak is going to block any effect. As we do see the Archaludon going for a Terra Grass, obviously that is because the Ursaluna has a really powerful Headlong Rush or Earthquake into it, so not wanting to let that happen. As we do see another Terraformation on the Ursaluna, beat Terra Ghost. That makes a lot of sense because it's facing a Sneasler that obviously has close combat. So I think this is a really interesting turn because he has a lot of things going on for itself. There is the Dark Claw. As I said, there is no possibility of any shenanigans with Dark Claw secondary effect because of the Cover Cloak. As we do see the Facade going into the Sneasler, and the Tailwind allowing this Ursaluna to outspeed that Archaludon and get the one-hit knockout into that Sneasler.
I wasn't sure if the Jumpluff is going to go down here from the Archaludon, but it did get the Tailwind, so that's all it really need to do. But I wasn't sure if the Ursaluna was going to go for the Terra Ghost or not, because on the one hand, of course, you don't want to be hit by a close combat, even if it is -2. On the other hand, you know, the Archaludon cannot hit you with an Electroshot, which is its most powerful move. So, yeah, there was that mind game a little bit, but now the Ursaluna being Terra Ghost means, on the one hand, okay, you cannot be hit by a Body Press, but you are susceptible to the Electroshot now. And the Rain has been set up, so any water moves from this Pelipper, I guess it's only a Weather Ball in this case, you know, are going to be more powerful, and the Electroshot shot is not going to have to charge up.
Remember that this Pelipper, even though it's flying, so it's not touching the field, it's actually Cover Cloak, so it's not vulnerable to flinching from Fake Out, so it's able to attack. But Z has this speed advantage here, so you can just they can just double into something here. Like Ursaluna is looking great here. Facade is probably going to get a KO here. Maybe not on the Archaludon, but you can double that slot with the Incineroar. Maybe Zee was expecting the Pelipper to protect, but Flare Blitz in the rain, it's still enough. Even though the Facade did get a stamina boost in the rain, Flare Blitz on that range is enough to KO that Archaludon. And I don't think Pelipper is going to have enough power to win against these two Pokemon.
Yeah, no, definitely not. A Weather Ball gonna go into this Ursaluna here. Probably not gonna be enough for the KO, no, by far not. And yeah, so Archaludon, one of the tankiest Pokemon we have sometimes seen go down in one hit, but yeah, usually not from like physical moves. But that is the power of Ursaluna, just, you know, it can hit the Archaludon super effective if it doesn't Terra, and if it does Terra, you have that powerful Facade, which, you know, with the Guts boost and Facade being boosted if you are burned as well, it is just so strong. So I think at this point all Zee has to do is just get one more move off on this Pelipper. Although,
yeah,
honestly, I'm not even... I mean, if this is a covered cloak Pelipper, it's probably not just like max speed or something. So if the Tailwind runs out, maybe the Pelipper gets the KO on the Ursaluna and can then still get the Incineroar.
You need to get a double protect here. If you don't get the double protect, it's over. And Gary did try to go for a double protect, didn't get it. So Ursaluna is going to be able to just get that Facade and the one-hit KO on the Pelipper because it's not a Focus Sash Bear and the Focus Sash was on the DD. So that's game one for Zee Costagliola. It's a really interesting take, you know, because we probably expected the Porygon to maybe try to go for Trick Room, but they said, like, you know what, I do have a really strong powerhouse that can work in Trick Room and outside of Trick Room, so I want to, let's say maybe Zee said, like, I want to see how you are going to approach this turn one, because if you lead with Indeedee, which I'm expecting, I can just let's say go for offense, try to eliminate that Indeedee. I still have the jump lift in the back and go for Tailwind. Of course, that's something that Gary didn't know in advance, because if you see a lead like it's in your pizza, you probably expect that the opponent's going to go for like a more like Trick Room oriented approach. But the jump bluff, even though it didn't do much, it allowed the Ursaluna to outspeed everything and just win the game. So really good pick for Zee, paying off there with that, let's say, mid-game Tailwind, allowing the Ursaluna to just get the knockouts that they desperately needed.
Unusual, of course, to bring the jump bluff without the sun mode, but, you know, in this case, didn't need the extra speed boost, just got it out for the Tailwind, and that was all it had to do. Maybe, you know, Zee was expecting their opponent to bring that Indeedee Sneasler mode and was prepared for that. And I think they also got way more value out of their Terra than Gary did. You know, the Archaludon, of course, had to respect any ground-type moves from the Ursaluna. But in this situation, you know, Terra Grass, all it really does is you lose your resistance to Facade, which is Ursaluna's like most dangerous move. So yeah, Gary will have to maybe adjust his strategy a little bit in the second game.
Yeah, I wonder if that Archaludon, like, let's say, had enough health to survive that Flare Blitz, because even though it was a super effective Flare Blitz, because they decided to go for a Terra Grass, as we already know, it was +1 defense, and the rain is technically canceling out the super effectiveness a little bit. So I believe it was around 25% health, so maybe that could have been a damage roll. So I wonder how different the game would have been if that Archaludon, let's say, would have survived. So maybe that's something that Gary thought, like, oh, maybe that's a roll, maybe I did have enough health to survive, but maybe it was a damage roll, or maybe it was not. So as you said, maybe Gary needs to adapt a little bit and maybe bring the Dozo. There's no clear smog on this Torkoal. We were saying that the initial variant of Marco Silva's team did have clear smog on the Torkoal for the Dozo, but this current one does not have clear smog. So maybe the Dozo has, you know, the option to be interesting at some point in the matchup, but Gary, at least in this first game, didn't want to go for Dozo. He just wanted to go for Indeedee Sneasler and having the Rain Core in the back. But yeah, really interesting game one. I believe we are ready to get into the game number 2, and let's see how both of these players adapt in this rematch now.
To be Incineroar and Porygon 2 one more time, and Sneasler and Indeedee again. Let's see if this time we see a Trick Room or an Imprisoned Trick Room, or maybe, you know, both players are just gonna go for an attack once again. Sneasler once again getting that Unburden boost and the special defense boost. The Incineroar here firing off an Intimidate. And yeah, so with same leads, especially, you know, after the game one, has been lost. I'm always curious. Okay, does the player who is now down a game go for that same lead because they think, okay, my early game was fine. I just need to adjust my late game. But we are going to see a change here. It is going to be Helping Hand over Expanding Force on this Indeedee. And a close combat into the Incineroar is just going to take it out right away. So that is a huge knockout. And if Zee did not go for a Trick Room here, this could look very nice for Gary. And it is going to be a Terra Blast here into the Indeedee. So maybe Zee once again trying to get that early knockout there.
Yeah, great adaptation by Gary, because in the game 1, he probably was trying to see how much damage the combination of attacks would do to the Porygon, because this Porygon is Terra-fight, and so if he wants to Terrasilize to not be weak to close combat, it's now going to be weak to the Expanding Force. So probably Gary was suspecting that a -1 close combat plus Expanding Force was enough, and he realized it was not enough. So now in this game 2, he said like, okay, let's just try to eliminate the Incineroar from play. I do have Helping Hand, even though -1 attack, the Helping Hand boosted close combat is going to be enough. And you're not going to click Trick Room to me because you know I have Imprison. You're not going to bother wasting a turn clicking Trick Room. So very nice one for Gary. Although there's a jump bluff we were talking about. Sneasler is not -2 anymore. So maybe a Dark Claw can this time pick up the KO depending on the damage rolls. But we do see a Terrasalization. Zee saying, I don't want to risk that. I have the Terra Water for a reason. I'm just going to Terrasilize into the Water Terra. So my jump bluff is not weak to your Dark Claw, and obviously the Dark Claw cannot affect or induce any secondary effect because of the Cover Cloak. As we do see a Sleep Powder in the Indeedee, connect that Sleep Powder, 75% accurate, but you know it works 75% of the time. It works 100% of the time. So Indeedee is now guaranteed to sleep, and there's a Trick Room. Wow, no Tailwind this time.
Yeah, instead of going for that Tailwind, deciding to go for a Sleep Powder to prevent any possible Imprison, and then going for a Trick Room, which is also going to benefit the Ursaluna that I'm guessing is waiting in the back. But, you know, Trick Room has more turns than Tailwind, and especially in a position like this where you don't have the Ursaluna on the field right now, you need to spend a turn to switch it out, as Zee does here. It is better to maybe have that extra turn of Trick Room and not the Tailwind. And it is going to be another Sleep Powder here on this very, very fast Sneasler. And also going to be put to sleep right away.
Yeah, Ursaluna is basically the one that has to do all the job here. But Jump Bluff is helping with the Sleep Powder. There is a first turn awake on the Indeedee, and the Indeedee gets the Trick from reverse. So no speed control for you. And that's a great switch in for Zee. You know, Ursaluna usually needs that turn to get that Flamer activated. So most players want to bring it on to switch in. And it was covering for this Sneasler attacking into that slot with Sleep Powder. Of course, Sleep Powder has that chance of missing, but it hasn't missed so far for Zee. But indeed, getting the first turn awake and reversing the Trick Room was a really, really nice play from Gary. I think that's what Gary needed to be back in the game, you know, because Sneasler, even though it's, you know, hitting Ursaluna super effectively, is -1. So now is Sneasler
double turn one wake up into the jump up, hangs on with 1 HP. Okay, this game just got really interesting real fast. Jump up's gonna set up
we see the Tailwind
down. Okay, you're not gonna give me the Trick Room, I'll set up the Tailwind instead. Followed up by a Facade is gonna take out this Indeedee. Okay, yeah, what a turn of events here. That was a roller coaster of the last 2 turns.
What a turn! The Jump Bluff surviving with, I believe, 1 or 2% health. The Sneasler getting another first turn awake, and Zee saying like, okay, you got rid of my Trick Room. It doesn't matter, I can have Tailwind as well. Let me just click whatever I need here. That's incredible. Like, Jump Bluff supporting the team with Sleep Powder, with also Tailwind, and don't forget, guys, this Jump Bluff does have Rage Powder, so I believe Ursaluna, even with the Tailwind, is never going to be faster than Sneasler because of the Burden. So maybe the Jump Bluff just goes for another Sleep Powder, or maybe just a Rage Powder to, you know, ensure that it doesn't have to miss. But no, Sleep Powder connects again.
Yeah, another Sleep Powder here, putting the Sneasler to sleep. So it is going to burn that 1 turn. Dondozo, of course, opting for the Protect here. Does not want to take any damage before the Tatsugiri comes in. And yeah, Facade going into that protecting Dondozo. Very fair, you know, you could expect the Sneasler to just switch into Tatsugiri here. So yeah, now the Psychic Terrain is gone and the Indeedee is down, so that is not going to be set up again. But also the Intimidate from the Incineroar in the lead really coming in clutch here for Zee, letting that Jumpluff survive with just, I'm guessing, 1 or 2 HP. It went down turn 1, but that Intimidate still did its job, and, this is why Incineroar is on the team. It plays that very important role. Sneasler has burned a turn of sleep, is gonna switch out into Tatsugiri, but yeah, the fact that it already burned a turn of sleep might be important later if we still get to see it. And now the Dondozo here is gonna get its boosts and take any hits from the Ursaluna even better. But the Jumpluff can still just continue going for these sleep powders.
Yep. And I believe that's what we're going to see here. I mean, I don't see any other play from Seaside. And there's the sleep powder. I believe this is the 4th one. And all of them have connected so far. Dondozo has to take a quick nap here. And we have to see how much this Facade is going to do. Even though Dondozo has the +2 defenses, Ursaluna is just really powerful. So I believe this is going to be around 40%. Yeah, that's exactly how much it does. But Dondozo has the leftovers. Now it's going to come down to how many sleep turns this Dondozo is going to have. So far, both Sneasler and Indeedee have woken up at the first turn. But maybe it's not the case for Dondozo. Maybe it is. You just have to go for a Protect here if you want. Maybe like trying to get some extra leftovers recovery. We also know that this Dondozo has the Terra Steel option. You don't want a Terra Steel maybe in front of an Ursaluna that has a really powerful ground type attack to hit you with. So yeah, the Jumpluff just proven to be worth it in a team like this. It doesn't do any damage. It doesn't have any offensive pressure, but that Tailwind, that Sleep Powder, and as we do see the Jumpluff switching out, because what else can it do? It cannot do any damage. So P2 is going to come into the field, and let's see if this Dondozo wakes up. Special attack is going to be boosted here with download, but that's not going to matter against Dondozo because of Unaware, as we do see the Dondozo taking another turn of sleep, and this Facade is really hurting. That's another 40%-ish to the Dondozo, so Dondozo has to watch out, because if you don't wake up in this next turn, Facade is going to get the KO there.
Yeah, and now that the Porygon 2 is on the field here and the Tailwind has expired, the Porygon 2, could also just go for a Trick Room here. But keep in mind, the Sneasler is still in the back and could hit both the Porygon 2 and the Ursaluna super effective. Of course, Zee still has their Terra open, and Ursaluna is going to go for a Protect here. So if the Dondozo wakes up here, it's not going to be able to go for a Wave Crash, but it's not going to wake up. It's going to continue to stay asleep. So I'm guessing we are going to see a Trick Room here now. So Zee really just constantly having the speed control in their favor, and I think that is something that the Sun team really does need, at least in my experience. I feel like if it doesn't have that speed control, it becomes a lot harder to position very well. So Zee just doing a phenomenal job here with that in this best of 3 so far.
Yeah, there's the thing about this team. We were talking about the Sun component, the Charizard, the Torkoal, but you don't even need that when you have an Ursaluna that can just do massive damage to everything, and a Porygon 2 that doesn't even take that much damage from some attacks, of course, because of how bulky it is with Eviolite and Protect. As we do see the Dondozo waking up, of course, that was guaranteed. I believe it was the 3rd turn, so it was guaranteed to wake up. But what else can you do here? You can Protect. Maybe you can play a Mind Game this next turn, like maybe Terrassalizing, hoping that the Ursaluna does not click Headlong Rush. But I believe if you are C here, you can just click Headlong Rush plus Terrablast. That would probably pick up the KO from that range. But let's see. I mean, Dondozo does have the option to Terrassalize. Maybe you can play that Mind Game. But I believe this is looking really, really tough for Gary, because Ursaluna and Porygon are just almost like Porygon is full health, and Ursaluna has, I believe, only taken its own rekill from the burn. So it's not taking any damage. And Dondozo is... It has to take the risk, I think, here. Like, it's a Mind Game, as I said. Maybe it's the only chance, but I believe like C can also just protect Ursaluna to scout if that happens. Porygon is never going to go down from any attack from this Ursaluna, barring any critical hit. And yeah, this is a decisive turn, I think, for this game too, specifically.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess that the Dondozo is gonna go down here. The Terrablast, look, that's so much damage there. And the Headlong Rush here will be more than enough to finish off the raid boss. And now it is Tatsugiri alone on the field with, Gary's last Pokemon, which is that very, very fast Sneasler. Even without the Unburden boost, Ursaluna and Trick Room, nothing new, even if it is a speedy Ursaluna. We know how dangerous it is once the Trick Room has been set up. And and the Sneasler is still asleep. I forgot about that as well. It did burn a turn of sleep, but I don't know if it's even gonna get the chance to wake up here. I mean, if you're Gary, you're probably just gonna try to go for a Protect. So, but what is it really gonna do? I don't think there's much Gary can do at this point.
Yeah, I believe your only chance here, I think, is like getting the first turn awake, protecting with Sneasler. There is a protect on Tatsugiri. I believe Gary did not click protect on the Sneasler. So let's see what the Ursaluna does. It's going for Earthquake. It's gonna KO its own Jumpluff because it's not a flying type anymore. But Jumpluff did its job. It really helped the Ursaluna to be in a position, you know, to spam those really powerful attacks with the Sleep Powder, with the Tailwind also. But Earthquake, you know, is a safe play here from C because you don't have to predict anything. I believe Gary probably had to rely on the first turn awake and maybe get the, you know, the Protect, because I think this is the last turn of Trick Room. But no, I was wrong. This is not the last turn of Trick Room. I believe there's another turn of Trick Room left. So even if you get the Protect, it's probably going to be game over. So B2 coming back, getting the download boost, and it's Tatsugiri against the world.
I think Gary at this point had to maybe even hope for a misplay on Z's end, that they go into the protecting Tatsugiri and then give the Sneasler a chance to wake up. And when you are in a tough spot like this, then sometimes that is the best way to, you know, approach the end game, to see if there's still any chance at all of making a comeback. But yeah, at this point, Tatsugiri alone. I mean, outside of Trick Room, I guess you can spam some Muddy Waters, but like even if now the Trick Room runs out, there's nothing preventing Z from just going for another Protect and Trick Room here and then just winning the game there.
This Tatsugiri does have Taunt though.
Close. Oh, it does, true, yeah.
Yeah, it does have Taunt, so technically there was a way to stop the Trick Room with Taunt, but it didn't actually click Taunt. It went for a Draco Meteor into the Ursaluna protecting. So you could have taunted the Porygon, and obviously if you do that, you are vulnerable to Ursaluna attacking. So probably Gary said, like, I want to attack the Ursaluna because, you know, I have Taunt, you know I have Taunt, so probably you're not going to click the Trick Room. But see, saying, like, I'm so far, let's say, ahead here, I don't necessarily need to predict anything.
Yeah.
If you go for the Taunt, okay, so be it. You still have to face a full health Porygon in the next turn. So
exactly.
It was a really tough spot for Gary, which is trying. There is the Terra goes into Tatsugiri. I believe here you always go for Headlong Rush and Ice Beam. But there's no Ice Beam. There's a Terra Blast into the Ghost Tatsugiri, and there's a Fastatsu. Maybe there's a chance.
I mean, we could see a Muddy Water here. Does it connect with both of them? It does, and it takes out the Ursaluna. And the Porygon 2 does get the accuracy drop. So maybe Z forgetting that Gary still had that Terra option open. And yeah, I mean, it is Tatsugiri against Porygon 2 now. And I mean, on the one hand, you know, Porygon does have the recover option, but as we just mentioned, the Tatsugiri also has the taunt. So, but I'm really not sure if the Tatsugiri is gonna have enough firepower to take down this Porygon 2, and Tatsugiri avoids the Ice Beam.
There's the Ice Beam dodge! There is a win condition here, another accuracy drop. This is winnable. I think C probably got a little bit confused there. Maybe forgot, as you said, about the Terra goes and the Tatsugiri. I believe there, if you just like Ice Beam Headlong Rush, you probably just win the game. But that was the only win condition that Gary had, as you said earlier. Like maybe in this kind of like tough spots, you have to hope for like a small misplay in your opponent and see if there's like a way you can get, you know, something valuable for you in return. There's another Ice Beam miss. This Porygon is -2 accuracy, and this Tatsugiri is actually trying, because I think the taunt is really important here, because you stop the Porygon from click and recover, and you only need to get, I believe, 2 Muddy Waters more, and then like you Draco, and it's assuming Draco connects, it's over. And there is a third dodge.
Not happening right now, is it?
Oh, incredible. Tatsugiri is trying its best to win this game for Gary, to force a game 3. 2 accuracy drops on the Porygon. Muddy Water has not missed so far.
This is not happening right now. Oh my god. Like, even if the Ice Beam did connect, I don't know if it would be like a 2-hit KO or a 3-hit KO on this Tatsugiri, but I'm guessing like at least 2 of those misses were important here. And, you know, of course, both of the Muddy Water accuracy drops as well. This is insane. I did not expect this game to end this way at all. It is going to be an Ice Beam.
There's the Ice Beam.
Wow, that is a 3-hit KO. So, yeah, I guess I take everything back.
Draco is missing.
Meteor
Is missing. Maybe we see an Ice Beam freeze.
Oh my
Ice Beam
God, I
does
cannot
connect.
take any more
It's
RNG
gonna do
here.
around 35%. No freeze, unfortunately. You have to connect your moves. Basically, Tatsugiri doesn't have any other option. You have to click and an accurate move. Draco does connect. So what an end game the Tatsugiri that tried.
Oh my God.
The Tatsugiri that tried. That was a really, really wild end game. Gary is tying the set. The Tatsugiri that tried against the world. I believe that was like 4 Ice Beam misses or something like that. But as we said, like Ursaluna had the option to just click Headlong Rush. It was guaranteed to be neutral damage into the Tatsugiri regardless of the terrestrialization or not. But Gary just said like, this is my only win condition. I have to hope that you forget about my Terra Ghost, go for a Facade, and maybe that way I can hope for some accuracy drops on the Porygon, because remember, the Porygon was full health at that point, and the taunt coming in clutch here because you stopped the Porygon from clicking recover multiple times, so that way your Tatsugiri can hope for like, you know, a couple of dodges here and there to maybe see if that was enough to win the game. And it was enough to win the game, so we're gonna get a game 3 here.
I was getting ready to look at our next best of 3 for the day. To me, that was like completely over. Even like I did forget about the taunt on Tatsugiri at first, but as you mentioned, you know, I thought, okay, even if you go for taunt on Porygon 2, you just go for headlong rushes with Ursaluna and Ice Beams with Tatsugiri, and you just win. Like, I was even gonna say, as long as you don't go for like Terra Blast and Facade into Terra Ghost Tatsugiri, you're pretty much good. And then
that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. And obviously, even though Facade is stronger than Headlong Rush, a little bit stronger, you know, 140 base power versus 120 base power, it's still an Ursaluna that is burned with a 1.5 attack boost against a tiny Tatsugiri. So I don't think it's going to survive a Headlong Rush. But that was its only win condition. And, you know, for all of us watching this, I think obviously a game 3 is very, very hype in a situation like this. For the US, maybe this is not what they were expecting. They were probably just thinking like, okay, this game is gonna end and we have the win, but we still have a game 3. There's a chance, of course, that Zee just wins a game 3 and US just gets a win anyways. But for us watching this, that was a comeback that we never expected.
No, like I said, like I was already getting ready to look at our next opponents for the day, but we are gonna have a game 3 in just a moment, I suppose. Man, this is a game that I definitely have to show a few of my friends if they're not watching live right now, and tell them, you know, it's not over until it's over.
When there's muddy water, there's a way.
Yeah, or just generally, you know, when we talk about, hey, it's not over yet, your opponent could still throw the game, could make some massive misplays. But I think this is also a great showcase of Gary's skill, that he recognized what the only misplays were that, you know, Zee could do for him to still make that comeback. And, you know, they ended up happening. And that just goes to show, you know, if there is still a chance, go for it.
Yeah.
Your opponent might forget about your Terra Ghost, and you might get some Muddy Water accuracy drops. If that's what you need to do, go for it. Well,
as
here
we do see,
game 3.
Game 3. Incineroar Porygon again against Sneasler and Indeedee again. So we already saw what happened game 1. The Porygon and Incineroar doubled into the Indeedee. We saw what happened game 2. The Indeedee went for Helping Hand, close combat into the Incineroar. And now we have this new mind game. What are you gonna click here if you are Gary?
Yeah, that is a great question, because, you know, it is the same leads in game 3 here as well, but we did have a little bit of a different game or turn 1 on Gary's side last time. So now, once again, I'm gonna ask myself if Zee's gonna decide to go for another knockoff and Terra Blast into the Indeedee, or maybe this time try a little bit of a different approach. Because, I mean, the game plan worked in game 2, you know, you had the win. So I don't know if adjustment is needed on Zee's side, but Gary, you know, he's ready now for this game 3. He knows what your game plan is.
Yeah, this is a mind game for both players. Incineroar does have the option to terrestrialize into a Ghost to avoid that close combat, but we don't see any terrestrialization We see the same helping hand close combat play. Maybe C said like, I know what I did wrong. I don't have to predict anything. I can just click Trick Room here. Of course, there is a mind game of like saying like, oh, I did click Trick Room at some point, or I didn't click Trick Room last time, so maybe this is my time to click Trick Room because you're not clicking in prison. I'm not gonna let you just like get that for free. If you want some of my Trick Room, you have to click in prison, and if you click in prison, you're not KOing Incinerator because you're not clicking Helping Hand. So I can kind of like force that you know, scenario where like you cannot cover for both things, you have to cover for one. So I'm just gonna click Trick Room and something with Incinerator. If you want to KO me, fine, I get the Trick Room, and now this Ursaluna is here. But unlike other situations, this Ursaluna right now is not with its gut activated, so it does hit a little bit less, but still a Pokemon with 140 base attack. So sometimes people forget about that. It's not like, oh, it needs the burn to actually do damage. It can still do a lot of damage. You can just go for Headlong Rush or Earthquakes here. Of course, it's not going to be boosted by Guts, but still really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, you can still take out a frail Pokemon like Sneasler even without a Guts boost, but Tatsugiri is gonna switch in here for the Indeedee, and the Sneasler is gonna switch into Dondozo. So Gary maybe using this one turn of the Ursaluna not having the Guts boost yet to get that Dondozo mode going. And yeah, like you said, that first turn I think is very safe for Z, because I'm guessing if the Incineroar didn't go down and the Indeedee went for Imprison, the maybe went for Parting Shot, and then he could have brought in the Jump Bluff and set up a Tailwind mode. So I'm guessing Z brought the same 4 Pokemon again. Porygon 2 is gonna go for a Terra Blast into what was the Indeedee, is now the Tatsugiri, and it is gonna be an Earthquake here from this Ursaluna. Gonna do a little bit of damage to both Z's own Porygon 2 and the Dondozo. So, you know, every little bit of damage on this Porygon is always nice to have. But now the Ursaluna does have the Guts boost and is gonna start dealing some massive damage. And this time Z cannot put this Dondozo to sleep.
Yeah, Dondozo taking the opportunity to come here because, as we were saying, the Ursaluna didn't have its Guts activated, so it's gonna do obviously less damage to it. And C not obviously willing to click Facade, because Facade is the only move you don't want to click usually there because it's just a 70 base power move without the Guts. But yeah, that was a great Dondozo switch in. Now obviously Dondozo with its defenses is going to be a decent like option here into Ursaluna, as we do see the Ursaluna opting to go for a Terra Ghost because obviously it's facing a Dondozo that has Wave Crash, and unlike previous games, the Dondozo is not asleep, so the Dondozo actually has a lot of offense also here. There's a Terra Blast doing around 20%, 15% to the Dondozo. Facade comes off into that Dondozo doing a lot of damage, and there is no Wave Crash. It's only a Heavy Slam, but Dondozo took so much damage, and I believe we still have 3 more turns of Trick Room, so I don't see how this Dondozo is surviving in 3 turns of Trick Room more.
Yeah, no, neither do I. And interesting to see Gary target the Porygon 2 and not the Ursaluna. Perhaps he was expecting Z to protect the Ursaluna and try to get some damage on the Porygon 2, because of course, you know, if you're expecting, or if you're expecting your opponent to expect a Wave Crash, you could imagine, you know, Z going for a Protect and then try to get some chip damage with the Porygon 2 at first. But yeah, it's not the case. Dondozo has to go for a Protect here now. Porygon 2 is just gonna heal that damage right back up. And yeah, this Ursaluna is still at almost full HP, has only taken burn chip damage. Headlong Rush into the Protect here. I think you really had to get that damage on the Ursaluna in the last turn, but yeah, sometimes maybe expecting your opponent to counter that. And I think Gary really needs to stall these Trick Room turns here now and then prevent another one from going up.
Yeah, the Dondozo has to click the Protect again and hope he gets the double. But even if he gets the double, I believe there's still 1 more turn of Trick Room. It does get the double Protect. I don't know how impactful this double Protect is going to be, because as I said, I believe there's still 1 more turn of Trick Room, but maybe I'm wrong and this is the last one. But as you said, like going for a Heavy Slam into the P2 does not feel like it's really valuable, right? Because P2 is a Pokemon that does have the option to just recover that damage. So like, it's like you're, let's say, sometimes wasting your turn if you're attacking into a Pokemon that you know is going to recover later. But on the other hand, attacking the Ursaluna, which you know this doesn't have recover, would have been probably a little bit more useful. But no, I was wrong, and this is the last turn of Trick Room. So maybe this is still winnable. Of course, Porygon is bulky. You can't predict the Ursaluna to protect and attack the Porygon. Heavy Slam might not be enough, but Wave Crash might be enough. However, the protect Ursaluna is something that is obvious for both players, so maybe Z does not protect Ursaluna and just goes for damage. So this is an interesting turn because that double protect did allow Gary to still be on the game. It was really impactful because unlike my, the example I was explaining, it was not still another turn of Trick Room. That was the last one. So do you predict the Ursaluna go for a safe protect and Trick Room from Porygon, or do you just predict the Ursaluna to not protect and just attack it? And that's exactly what we are seeing. But Ursaluna hangs on with a sliver of health, and that is going to be enough to allow this Facade to pick up the KO on Dondozo, and the Porygon, I believe, is just clicking Trick Room because there was no reason to not do it. There it is, the Trick Room. And now it's once again Tatsugiri against the world, but I think Sneasler is still in the back. This Ursaluna is gonna survive the burn turn.
Yeah, and there's also the Indeedee still, Gary did go for a double switch into the Tatsugiri Dondozo mode. I was going to say, maybe it would have been better to let the Dondozo go down so you have the taunt on the Tatsugiri once the Trick Room expires. But yeah, getting that wave crash on the Ursaluna, this time correctly predicting that it will not protect, means that it can only attack one more time before it just goes down to the burn. So now, yeah, Z bringing in the jump left here. Tatsugiri protecting, and I'm guessing Sneasler is just gonna try and get some damage on. No, is also just gonna go for the protect here. Yeah, fair enough, the Trick Room has been set up again, and Sneasler is of course very fast.
Oh, wow!
Okay.
He Ice Beam his own jump bluff to get back the Ursaluna to get the pressure. This play could be a decisive play here because Ursaluna is on the timer. You don't have a lot of turns. You have one more turn with the Ursaluna because the burn is going to get rid of it. And that was a really, really aggressive play from Z. I don't think that was a misplay. I think that was on purpose.
No, not at all.
Because he was predicting the Sneasler to protect. It's so obvious that you want to protect because Ursaluna is going to go down to its own burn. But I'm not sure if that was really what you needed because at least Jump Love still had the option to click Sleep Powder into this Sneasler. Let's say if you are Gary, you just switch out this Sneasler here because Ursaluna is gonna go down to its own burn damage. And what a play from Z. I don't know if this is gonna be the game winning play or the game losing play, but we did see an Ice Beam into its own Jump Bluff, which is obviously 4 times weak to it, as we do see a recover coming off from this P2. And I don't think I read what the Ursaluna went for. Okay, so the Ursaluna is actually lower than this P2, so it's moving second. And there's the Earthquake, indeed surviving, but that is going to be the last move this Ursaluna clicked. And it's gonna be P2 against the world now.
Yeah, on the one hand, I was thinking like, okay, Z wants to switch out the Ursaluna because they know it only has one more turn, and you might want to get it into a position to get that finishing blow later. But yeah, Ice Beaming your own jump love, of course, means that the double protect was essentially, I guess, used by Z to keep that Ursaluna alive for one more turn. But now, yeah, it is down now. Porygon does not have the option to go for a Terra, and even though Trick Room is still up, I don't see this Porygon 2 taking down a Sneasler and an Indeedee, especially with this helping hand coming through. The Porygon 2 is going to go for an Ice Beam. This could
You have to go for a freeze. Let's get the freeze.
No
freeze.
And that is going to be game. Oh my god!
That is game. What a set! What a roller coaster of emotions! Sneasler